I'm Sean from Edgewood Hobbies, and welcome to my channel. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing, as it will help out the channel a lot. If you don't enjoy the video, please dislike it and tell me why in the comments. I can't fix it if I don't know what's broken. So today we're going to be looking at the Ork Boys box by Games Workshop. Specifically looking at the Boss Nob, the big leader of the boys. So my issues with the Ork Boys are the over exaggerated arch in the spine and the butt sticking all the way out. I just think they look kind of goofy. I know a lot of people do. The other issue I have with the knob specifically is, so this is a normal Ork's body and this is the knob's body, so clearly it's larger. But they want you to put it on the same size legs as the Ork Boy. So it's going to have these like small goofy legs and a giant goofy torso with its butt sticking out, and I just think it's going to look ridiculous. So I was looking for a better set of legs, and I found this guy, who is the Ogre Chieftain by Reaper Bones. It's going to take some work, obviously, to make the legs look like pants and boots, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So yeah, I think this is going to look really good when it's done, but we're just going to have to try it and figure it out. So I'm going to use the clippers to remove the torso from the sprue. Now, for cleaning up mold lines, I use an X-Acto knife because I don't want to use my nice scalpel to rub back and forth on the plastic. But you can. It's not gonna really screw anything up. So just using the knife to remove the tabs where I cut it off of the sprue. You always want to cut it off a little bit away from the piece so that you don't damage it with the clippers. It's better to clean it up later, to cut away from the piece and clean it up later. And then just removing the mold lines by rubbing the side of the blade on the piece. Like so. Rubbing it on the side of the piece. Sorry for the bad, for getting off camera there for a second. Still trying to figure out this whole camera thing. They are good about putting some of the mold lines on actual lines, so it doesn't look silly, like this one right here. You don't really have to clean that up. Now, what I do that I haven't seen anyone else do is after I clean it up with the knife, I take a piece of Scotch-Brite, this like, it's not steel wool, but it's like this rough scrubby material, and I just go like this over where I pulled the mold lines off. Now it adds some micro scratches, but they come off when you prime it. Like they're really, really, really fine scratches. Oh, I missed one here. Now the only issue I've found with using the Scotch-Brite like this is that when you're done, you've got this like fine purple powder on the piece, which would screw up the paint job. So then I come in with a brush, little toothbrush, and I just dust off all the purple pieces. And I think that works really well, and that's how I clean up mold lines. So the pieces I have, I already did the rest. So there's the body, Here's the legs we're going for. Here are the pieces of the power claw. Now I'm going to try something else I've never done, and I'm going to magnetize the left arm so that I can use the axe or the power claw. I'm going to cover where the arm comes off with a shoulder pad. Got the head picked out there, a scope for the gun, and I don't really like these battle standards they use that clip on their back. So I'm gonna cover the hole on his back with a combat knife. I just think it'll look cooler. So now that we're done with all of those for now, let's get to this guy. So he's got a woolly mammoth on the front of him, which I'm gonna have to remove. I'm gonna leave that big circular piece of armor though. That pouch is nice, so I'm gonna try and cut away everything above his belt without damaging the stuff like the armor and the pouch there and stuff. I think what I'm gonna start by doing is removing his arms to give me some more room to work with. So when I'm cutting plastics like this, I like to use a scalpel rather than an X-Acto, because it's just way sharper, and you just get much cleaner cuts, and it's safer to use a sharper knife because you have to apply less force, which gives you more control. That goes for cooking too. So I'm just gonna come in like this. Oh yeah, that goes through like butter. This Bones plastic is really soft. Bones is interesting. It's really soft to work with. It's kind of flexible, which makes it tricky to paint some finer details like swords and stuff, because they kind of move while you're trying to paint them. The best thing Bones has going for it is they're super cheap. If you're just getting into the hobby and you want some really affordable minis to paint, you can't go wrong with the Bones line by Reaper. They're really good models. It's a weird plastic though. You can't prime it, which we'll deal with later, because we're gonna have to prime this model obviously, but you can't prime the legs. I have a way around that, which I'll touch on when we get there later. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I think that's decent. Now I'm gonna have to carve a little indent in there so that this will set down in. These legs look a little big. Maybe I can bulk him up with putty so he doesn't look goofy. It's just what I'm gonna have to do. Maybe I won't put an indent in it and just bulk him up with putty. I will put a small indent in the middle so that the base of the torso has somewhere to rest for gluing. Okay. I mean, and it's not the biggest deal if it doesn't match perfectly, because orcs are kind of proportioned goofy anyway. If you make any mistakes, just smooth it out. That's another thing too. It's not like orc armor has to be perfect, you know? Orcs are great for kit bashing because they allow a lot of freedom for screw-ups. Nothing has to look perfect. Now that it's cut in half, I'm gonna clean up the mold lines on the legs here. They're actually pretty bad. This is one bad thing about the Bones plastic. It's harder to clean up the mold lines because it wants to flex under the blade instead of cut away. So I decided to come in and put some lines on this and kind of make it look like napped stone, kind of. So it's gonna have like this, all these little like a hammered metal look, sort of, which I think is gonna look really cool. Mostly I'm lazy and I don't want to smooth out the metal plate here, but I think it'll look really cool to have like the hammered metal look. That's cool. I really like that. That looks really neat. Okay, so super glue. Eventually I'm going to cut this base off, and I think I'm going to cut a couple of his toes off too to make it easier to sculpt around, but for now I'm going to leave it on just to make it easier to hold for the time being. Well, that's stuck on there a little bit. Now, one thing I'm going to do that you might not know about, but it's a great trick, is I'm going to add a little more super glue in here. Or a lot more super glue. Get it to like fall down the cracks there. And then I'm going to take baking soda. In case you don't know this, baking soda reacts with super glue and gets super hard, like a rock. So I'm gonna drop this in here, and then I'll mold up around this with putty, but I think that'll help. Hold it together a little bit. Cool. I'm gonna use the baking soda later for something else. We're just gonna go right into puttying now before adding other limbs, because it'll be easier without the other limbs on there. So we're gonna be using green stuff. I ended up discovering that my milliput was kind of gross, so I need to get more. So for now, we'll just use green stuff. I don't necessarily love how tacky green stuff is. So I do tend to use milliput mixed with green stuff, but so in case you're unfamiliar, green stuff it's called Needetite. This is its actual name. It's a two-part epoxy putty. Don't use this piece in the middle right there, because it can cure a little bit, and you get like chunks in your putty, and we don't want putty chunks. So just cut out around that. I don't think I need that much. I use the X-Acto, not the scalpel, because I don't want to get putty on my scalpel. And there you go. So get your fingers nice and wet too, so that the green stuff doesn't stick to your fingers. And then just mix it until the blue and yellow parts turn green. Lay that down there with wet fingers. Keep your surfaces wet. Keep your tools wet also, so that the putty doesn't stick to your tools. So I'm laying it out, I'm rolling it out really thin. I'm going to lay a bead of it around the waist. And then I'll come in with my sculpting tools, which are just dental tools, by the way. I use color shapers, which are like plastic brushes, kinda. These are great for putties and clays. And then I just use dental tools, really, and they work really well. Okay, so I'm gonna take this base off because I'm not using it. And then I'm gonna cut this big toe off and this pinky toe off to make the feet more narrow in the way I want them. And then I'm gonna mold boots over the feet. As green stuff starts to dry, it shrinks a little bit. So I'm getting these weird little holes here that I have to fill in. But it's not too big of a deal. Cool. Alright, so now I'm going to start on his legs. I think I like that for his legs. I think I'm pretty much done there. I think I'm pretty much done. Okay, so the legs are good. What are we doing now? We've got his gun arm here, which is going to aim pretty much straight out. I've also got a scope that goes on top of the gun. That's what they showed in the book. I don't really know that I like it though. I'm gonna check the booklet real quick and see how it looks. Well, I guess that's how it's supposed to look. Alright, I'm just gonna go with it. That way if I do ever use this guy to play a game, it'll match up right with what he's doing. I am gonna cut a little... My table's getting crowded. I am gonna cut a little notch here. Where do I want it? Right there. I am going to cut a little notch right here. So that it has more area to like grab onto. Okay, that looks good. So for binding, for gluing these plastics here, I like to use plastic glue because I like the bond it gives. It just completely fuses the plastic together, which I'm a fan of. It also gives you a little more working time than super glue. I didn't make that gap wide enough. I did exactly what I hate, and I got glue on my knife. Whatever, it's not a big deal. So I like that it like fuses the plastic together. It makes for a really secure bond. If you drop it, it won't break. And I have a kid. I have a 4-year-old daughter, so things getting dropped is definitely not out of the question. Trying to line it up straight here. Looks like I accidentally got a little green stuff on the scope here. I must have had a bit stuck to my finger. Weird. Okay. So we're just going to get that straight again. Okay. And that's stuck on there. But before I put that on, so this is the head I chose. It's not the head they tell you to use, but I don't really like the one they tell you to use. So I went for this nice big screamy guy. But I don't like how low the head sits on the torso, so I might raise it up with green stuff just a bit. You know, just a smidgen. Let's see how easily I can do this. I think I might actually leave the head off to paint it. Whether I do that on video or not remains to be seen, but you guys let me know what you think. I'm not a spectacular painter, but like tabletop standard, like I'm pretty happy with it, you know? I don't think it's the worst paint job ever. At least I drilled out my barrel, right? Which reminds me, I have to drill these barrels out. I'll do that in a minute. Okay, I think I like that. Now, I've got this one here. This bit that I put the red dot on is for drilling out holes to pin things together. Can't remember which bit I used to drill out barrels. That one looks good. Alright, so I'm just going to drill out the barrels real quick. Alright, sorry for that cut. My phone messed up again. So, you take your X-Acto knife, you put it right in the center of where you want to drill, and you make a little pilot hole. That way the drill bit goes right where you want it to. Of course, it's not working. Just go really slow, really steady. Make sure the bit stays right where you want it. I just totally screwed up the scope also. It's in the process of fusing on, and I just totally screwed it up. I'll add more glue to it in a minute. Once the hole really gets started, you can go a little faster. It's not bad. You don't need to go too deep when you're drilling out barrels. Just deep enough that you can paint the inside black. And it'll look like a hole, you know? That's what I do anyways. Some people probably go quite a bit deeper, but I don't really feel the need to. Just clean that up a little bit. Yeah, so they're not perfect, but they look pretty good. So that's all set. So now what I need to do is find a 1mm bit, which I think, or a 2mm bit, I'm sorry, 2mm. I've got my 1mm by 2mm magnets here that I'm going to use to stick the arms in. There we go, perfect. So I'm going to drill holes right here and in the axe arm and the claw arm. Okay, so I got those holes drilled. I've got one there, and then one in the axe arm, and one on the claw arm. So now you can buy better magnets that have a dot on each side. I put a dot on this final one here just to know which direction they're going, but I'll probably buy better ones next time. So I'm just going to use a little bit of super glue. I'm going to put it in the hole here. Then I'm going to take off a single magnet, stick it to the end of my knife. I'll push it in and then slide it off. Use the knife to make sure it's straight in there. And there we go. So I'm going to do the other two and I'll get right back to you. And we're back. Alright, so I magnetized both arms. I actually put this magnet in backwards at one point and had to fix it, so that was really annoying. I have the head on temporarily just so that I can fit the shoulder pad on and make sure it's not going to hit the head. I'm just trying to cover up that seam a little. I'm just trying to cover the seam where the arms are going to magnetize on, so I'm using this shoulder pad here. Alright, so here it is for the moment. The arms go on. I think they look pretty good with the shoulder pad. I think I like it so far. Now the only thing we have left to do is to put this combat knife on his back to cover that hole there. So I think I'm going to lay it kind of like this, and then I'm going to add a strap around it with green stuff. Yeah, grab the plastic glue here. Put a big glob of that on the back. And then I'll figure out just where I want the knife. I think I like that. That way he could reach back with this hand and grab it. It's right there. So yeah, I think I like that. I'll give that a minute to dry. I'll grab the green stuff. Alright, I think that's gonna do it. I like that. Okay, so the only thing we have left to do is to base this guy, which is going to take a few steps because I have an interesting way of basing my models. The first thing I'm going to do, now the 32mm base that came with the Orks is way too small for this guy. Well, it's barely too small, but I don't think I want to use it. I don't know, I wish I had like an 1.5" base because the 2-inch base is like way too big, kinda. Maybe I'll just make him fit on the 32. That way I can play him and he'll still fit fine. I think I'll do that. Alright, so I'm gonna take my clippers and I'm gonna cut a little length of sprue here. And I'm going to cut this little length of sprue in half. And then I'm going to take this sprue and I'm going to super glue it to the bottom of this dude's feet. So now that the sprue is glued to his feet, I need to glue his feet to the base. Using a lot of glue, and I'm probably going to end up using baking soda too here to make sure he's really stuck on. I really like how this is coming together. I'm really happy with this. I used the super glue baking soda trick to get it really sturdy on there. Now what I'm going to do is whip up some of my basing compound that I use. I'll show you that right now. So this little wooden stick there, a little cup. Now it has 4 ingredients. I use 1 part drywall joint compound, I'll take this stick here and just pull a little bit out. So 1 part drywall joint compound and 1 part baking soda. It's close enough. To 2 parts craft sand. And this is all just rough estimates, guys. It's not the end of the world, and I might fudge with it a little bit when I'm actually working. 2 parts craft sand and 2 parts tacky glue. So 1 part drywall joint compound, 1 part baking soda, 2 parts craft sand, and 2 parts tacky glue. You could probably use Elmer's glue too, and that would be totally fine. Now just get it really, really, really good and mixed up really well. Okay, so now that it's mixed, the way I usually do it is I'll hold this in my fingers like this. I'll hold the model here. And then I'll take a wet sculpting tool and I'll grab it off here and place it down on the base. Actually, I want to put the base on top of the pill bottle so that I don't have to hold the base while I'm doing this. So I'm going to put the base on a pill bottle, and then I'm going to throw the basing compound on the bottom, and I'll come back in a minute and show you what it looks like. And here it is, all finished. The base, I put the stuff on, the basing compound, and then I textured it. When it's all done, it comes out looking kind of like this, which I really like. Yeah, I think it looks really nice. So the way to prime the Reaper Bones material, since it's not primable plastic, unless you use specific brush-on primers, is I just spray it with a layer of matte varnish first. And then once it's coated in matte varnish, you can prime it just like any other plastic. But yeah, so thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you'd like to see more, please consider subscribing. But yeah, like I said earlier, what do you guys want to see next? Do you want me to paint this guy up, or should I jump right into another conversion? If you want to know what tools and gear I use, you can find a detailed list at my website, edgewoodhobbies.com. I'd also love for you to check me out on Facebook and Instagram at edgewoodhobbies. If you'd like to support me, you can buy me a coffee by clicking on the link in the description. Thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.